So what
What else I want to show you about this project
here,
is if you do want to create the 2D drawings of this,
it's pretty much a
and
bracket
without actually starting over from scratch,
a half-inch
what
tube.
you can do is do a flat
so
shot.
basically what you want to do, start out with is
So
just
a
looking
flat
at the
shot
object,
basically creates 2D drawings based on the reference view you are currently in and your UCX setup. So I'm going to rotate my UCX so
efficiency.
I see X and Y.
Critical, so keep in mind. You look at
like
that,
so,
you look, okay,
and I'm going to go exactly to that view.
That
So I'm going to 3D views, I'm going to go
by
to,
1
I
inch.
believe that is the top.
Then I have these two little tabs,
the top,
which are projections in the
so
rectangle, allowing you to press
what I'm looking for. And I'm going to just type this in, flat shot.
to the
It should
rectangle.
automatically
And
pop
then
up
create
as
the
your
wire.
options.
Pretty simple.
You select
But
that.
as you can see, there's a break.
And it's going to ask you a couple of different things. It says insert a new block, replace existing block, export to a file,
drawing looks longer,
colors, foreground lines, line type.
So here we go.
Obscure lines.
Basically, what we want to start out with
include
is on a top view. I preferably
there's a lot of different options.
Because once
but what we're going to do is just going to insert as a new block.
3D problems.
We click the button
don't use
create.
This. I think it still has an error on
it. And it will automatically create a 2D
but what you want to
view
do is
of that object. So you select where you want to place it in the location.
Thickness.
Next option is going to ask you about the scale.
13 gauge.
So just like
so here's
enter
gauge
to keep it as 1.
Specify.
It's also going to ask you about the Y scale. We'll also keep it based on
Google
X. And then it wants to know which quadrant to place it in. If you have ortho on, this will work out perfectly for you. And we place it.
Center thickness.
So next step, we'll have to rotate around. So we're going to go to a different view so we can do a different flat shot.
Do so now.
So we're going to go to our view.
So give a line command.
Views, and we're going to go
sure my ortho is
let's
on.
say, my right
grid, so turn off grid,
which is like the front of the actual object.
Oh, I didn't write that
I
out.
think that's the front. To do that, what we're going to go is, again, type in flat shot
0.0897.
Create a as new block,
so you can double click your
place it somewhere on the screen.
Zoom into the entire object
away from our main 3D part and our 2D
vertical
part.
line at
And we're going to type in enter for the 1:1 scale, and the X to match the Y scale.
Now technically you didn't have to do that first part, what you could have just done was
quadrant.
Actually do have to, because we have the bottom base
so we
dimension,
got
but
our
we don't have
side,
the
we
top
got
overall
our
dimension.
front,
so we have to do use the bottom
top
as a reference.
A top part. So we're going to go to view again,
and then also the thickness again, 0.08,
and then once more flat shot.
Height, and I close it up. You remove that centerpiece at 0.52 because I no longer need that, and I can use the offset command. So when you modify options, you go to offset.
Place.
Our offset is going to be
the thickness of
the material,
how much time it takes, and the stress in creating offsetting views from a 3D object
inwards.
But the only issue now is that they're in different quadrants and they're differently rotated.
Do a trim to make it quick and easy. Use the trim command. Select the entire object.
So we're going to just use the 3D rotate command gizmo.
And you just remove all the
parts rotate that around. To rotate this based on the x-axis.
That pretty much includes that little segment.
So you can probably zoom
now we can of course extrude this out and make it 3D. But we're not going to do that. We're going to move forward with the 2D wire.
Really out there. Now these are blocks.
This
so all you do is click on them once.
We don't have all the specified.
And it selects the entire object. As you can see, I'm just rotating
we're gonna
these
start
around.
With the line.
This one will rotate toward the z-axis.
It's 1 inch.
Now if I move them over, I can also use the move gizmo.
0.236.
I'm going to move them over so they somewhat match each other. So if I look at the front, yep, that's perfect. The only thing, they're in different y-axis now. So I will have to snap them together somehow. So I'm going to use the move command.
From that point will be 9
maybe
inches
like minus corner
to
this corner,
0.236,
and this corner here
or we
to the
can
base corner. I do that because once I view it from the front,
so 8,
I can move them
7
perpendicularly using the ortho so that exactly everything matches up.
What you can do is type in calc,
and it looks very nice
for
and
calculator.
Now, if I had my title block, which I mistakenly did not, I would use a viewport to zoom into this.
What you can do,
and then you could add actually dimensions in
go to tools,
in your
model space,
quick calc, or you can do it in your paper space.
There,
I recommend doing all dimensions
or
in
click on the
model
digits
space.
To find out exactly the size you're looking
if you're doing paper space and you edit something here, it doesn't change, you might not catch it, you risk the chance of not having all the exact dimensions you had before, or they got moved, or so forth. If you move this, let's say you dimension it out here, and you decided to move it.
Now, as you can see, the PDF is missing a critical dimension here. It's not showing how long this 30-degree angle is
away
from
the
what
3D
point
parts.
starts, because that could start from
and
here
you forgot
and be that long. So we have to quickly estimate based on this drawing.
Sometimes it does not move correctly.
So this is 1 inch. I believe this would be about half an inch.
So I would have two viewports.
That way. It doesn't have to be perfect. The idea
One would be
to design
the main viewport, which had all the 2D drawings of it with dimensions, and I would also have an additional
half
viewport,
0.5, and with the 30-degree angle, which you can control.
Would have the 3D parts.
Create that 30-degree angle.
Here I would actually go into a isometric view.
So.
Now, hopefully, you guys
extend that out that 9 inch all the way to here, and I trim it off.
Let's do this northwest. No, this is tricky trying to figure out which exact 3D view to go with.
So that's going to be my path. The only thing I have to add to that is a fillet, because you'll never get a 90-degree turn on a wire. So what we're going to do is do fillet. We're going to type in
I have some like
the radius. Most machines will take you with the radius.
2D parts. Technically, I should have dimensions in here
in addition
already
to
preset or done.
The actual
model space. I can at least
thickness
add
of
one
the wire
for reference.
At this point, I'm just going to put in 0.3.
And if you guys have problems with creating viewports, it's going to view, viewports, new viewports.
That didn't quite work.
You can go with the actual model configuration, or you can go with the single. Click OK, and you just create a box.
Radius.
Now, if you want to do separate viewports for each part, that's fine. Top view, but I don't recommend it. It's just additional work that's not needed.
Like so.
But here's an example. I have parts, I have two 3D
thickness
views.
Of the
one
wire.
I will actually create
do a circle with the diameter of
it's not going to let me
0.236.
I have to go to a visual view of realistic.
Because when we do the sweep command, we can select the circle.
And there's a realistic, which places the
right
material on it, semi. It's not completely rendered.
I think we are done with the
but
basic
it does
2D
allow
drawing.
You to
and you can always go
give
back
a basic
to add additional
view of the rendered.
But for now, we're going to leave it as is, and we're going to go into 3D modeling. If you're not in 3D modeling, do so now.
Again,
supposed to be 3D modeling here.
And again, keep all these. If you're going to do two different ones,
or from extrude, you can go into sweep command.
Even the 2D, make sure it is in scale, so that way, if anybody prints it out ever, here's your scales.
Enter, and we're going to select the path.
Oh, wrong way.
That's right. One thing to notice that if you do not make this a polyline, which meaning a single line, it will not follow through with making that sweep.
So that way, if somebody uses a ruler to measure out
anything else that they may need, either use p-edit,
actually see it,
polyline edit,
and for actual manufacturing, or the people that will actually make this wire bend it, they will actually need a full scale design.
Pretty much
they can actually take the wire, bend it, so it matches exactly what you have here.
So to p-edit
as a
prototype,
type in
p-edit,
if they were making it as a manufacturing, they would have to program this into a
type in multiple,
CNC machine.
Or you select down here. You select
again, you would have a title block, your information, logo if you wish, enter, and so forth. But this would
you say yes,
create
default,
exactly
so we
what you're
enter yes again, and we can just click enter to exit out. And that creates. No, it did not. What's going on here? Maybe I missed a line.
P-edit, M for multiple.
Oh, I'm sorry, join. You forgot to select our options here. Once you do p-edit and you do multiple, you select all your items. You tape, and then you select J for join. Join, click enter, and enter. And that creates one polyline instead of a segmented line. From there, you can go back to your home tab, go to sweep, select the circle, select the path, select the circle, enter, select the path, and it creates that 3D part. If you want a better visual view from your 2D wire to conceptual, you go into your view tab here, and you go to conceptual. For this rectangle, we're not going to work on creating it as a polyline, even though it would benefit us a little bit, but we're going to use the easy command of press pull. Press pull is also in your home tab. It's right next to your polysolids and all these extrude options. You have to take that press pull and you make sure that you select inside the object you want to extrude out. So you select that inside and you're going to actually give it a height of 1 inch, like so. There's actually additional 2 parts that we need to create for this object or this drawing, and actually we need to also add a fillet to this edge here. To do that, we go, I'll look into the PDF, there's a hole over here that allows it to hang on for powder coating, and this is a projection, 2 projections, probably 0.04 wide, to allow for press welding. So the current, when they're welding it together, goes through that little gap, and that's what actually melts and bonds both these objects together. So we go back to our drawing. You can start out with the actual hole. To do that, make sure you rotate in a direction so you can see the back. We also rotate our X and Y coordinate systems so that X and Y are facing us, so we can see both, not Z. And we're going to create a circle. Again, see, there's also missing information about the circle size. So the circle size, diameter, it's usually 1/8, because that's the wire they use to hang parts on the powder coating. So we'll do that. Do 1/8. We can go a little bit bigger since you don't want to go the size of the wire because it'd be really hard to fit. We should make it bigger, so we're going to go with diameter of 22. From there, we take the move command and we move the object from its center to the midpoint of the rectangle. If you do not have the midpoint options activated, make sure you right click on auto snap, and this is highlighted, the midpoint. From there, we also move it over using the gizmo. We're moving it over, let's say about 1/2 inch. Now I guess, again, this is not, there's no specifications on this, so you could specify whatever you prefer. Otherwise, you can follow me as I'm doing it. I see that it's a little too far, so I can bring it back down 0.25. And from there, I do a press pull, and that cuts that hole right out the back. So we have that. We have the powder coating hook hole. We have our actual back bracket, and we have your wire. The wire needs a fillet, so we can do that next. Go to fillet command. R for radius, we'll do 1/16. It creates something like that. So we have that part, we have that. Now we also need to add those projections. The projections are just rectangles that are about the width of the wire, usually a little longer. and we'll place them just about where we see it on a drawing. Now here I'll show you where the projections are. So here's a projection, and here's a projection. So we go back to our drawing. Our X and Y coordinate system are fine. I'm just going to create a rectangle on the side. So I take rectangle, I select it anywhere on the screen. D for dimension. The length will be maybe 0.0625, which is 1/16, by the height, which will be 0.375, which is 3/8. We just place it on the screen, and we can extrude that out by 0.04. Now these are numbers I'm giving you. If you want to change it, make it a little wider, less wider, whatever you prefer, that's fine. Now, to give it an option of rotating, if you place the part in the wrong rotation, what you can do is select the item. You'll see the move gizmo is activated. You can change the move gizmo into a rotate gizmo, at which point it's like a wheel. As you turn it, it will turn it at that axis. So if you're turning in red, which is the x-axis, it's going to rotate that way. If you select a different axis, it will rotate that way, and so forth. So you can play around with that for your own preference. Make sure again you have ortho on, or you have polar and you do 90 degrees, and then we can start placing this part onto either our rectangle or our wire. We do a move command, select the object. This time we're moving it from the midpoint here to the midpoint of the rectangle, like so, and we're moving it up. You can either use the move command, or you can change your gizmo into a move. Select the object, and you move it over, let's say, 1/2 inch. And also making a copy, the same. Make sure it's ortho is active. I'm going to do about 1. Oh no, that's too much. 0.75. Now if these are too far out, that's fine. You can just select both and move them in the other direction. Then you can take the final wire, connect it from the quadrant. If you don't have the quadrant option activated, you should do that now, which is right click on the OSNAP quadrant, select the quadrant, make it place here. And then here's the issue. We do have the actual distance from our wire to our top of our rectangle. It's 0.32. Not sure why they required that, but we do have to follow the spec. So we're going to do that. So we're going to actually, I'm going to move this object based on quadrant here to the midpoint of my rectangle. From there, moving it down the required distance of 0.32. And then I have to move it over. And I can use this as a reference. No, it's not going to let me get the quadrant. So as you can see, these projections are in the wrong position, so I can move them down again. And maybe even closer to each other. There we go. And actually, that is the completed part. Oh, except it's not centered anymore. So I have to resolve that by drawing a line.
as a reference, and I move it over. Completely lost it here. Sometimes this gets really tricky. Okay, it's aligned. Might have to just draw a reference line. From the center. And then finally move it down 0.32. Give me the exact design that I'm looking for. Let's see. Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. Then you just have to put in a title block, put your name, date, name of the project, and the dimensions required. If you like, I'm going to dabble in a little bit of rendering. We're going to add in material to this object. So right now, it's set at a layer that is probably default. Does not have any material or anything set. So to get a little bit feeling of material, especially if you want to put material in your previous projects that you've done for this class, which was the toy train, or the other, the C132C project, what you can do is in your tabs here, there's a render option. You can material browse, and that's going to load up. And hopefully it will load up all the different materials that they have to offer. You can expand this out to give you explanation of what it is, what category, so ceramics, what type, name of it, and even the actual preview of the color. They can go by type, by category, it's all up to you. So if you type generic, and there's wood, there's masonry, plastic, stone, and so forth. Again, I said that it's going to be powder coated since we do have a powder coating hook, so you can just put any color you like. Remember, each part, as long as it's separate, will be powder coated differently. Will be rendered differently if you want to do that, even though during powder coating it's probably going to be just one plain color. Oops, that was that. This gives you a preview up here which materials are being used. So I have these. Global is generic, the red one, and I did the blue one twice. Not sure why. You can delete it by selecting and removing. And I can also keep on implementing more material. There's some really cool LEDs because they glow, or at least they look like they glow. So you can place those on the objects also. All you do is select the material, drag it, and drop it, and it snaps onto the material. If you want to make an object surface completely different from the other surfaces, there is also another option to do that. You can, like here's the neon yellow. I'm going to make the back that neon yellow. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to hold control, and it creates that color only on the back surface. So I'll show you an example of what it completely looks like. I'm going to rotate my object because I'm not fond of how it's set up right now. I'm going to rotate using the gizmo. And now if I go to like a isometric view, I prefer that. The thing about rendering is it's a little weird because the screen actually it's going to render the full screen, so even this area here it gets rendered out. Even though it's all black, there's no material there. So if you zoom in a little bit more than you should, that is fine. It's not going to do that screen. We're going to do the full rendering. So again, you go back to your render tab and you click on this teapot, and that's going to render your object. Oh, kind of cut it a little too short here. So I can just move my screen, and it looks like I'm also missing a material on that back panel, which I thought I placed. So I'm going to render it once more. There we go. I got this new cool red, this neon LED green, and the blue backing. Again, if you wanted to just place one color per face or surface, you drag, hold Control, and you place it on a specified object. Hoping that that's. And you click Render again. You can see, turned yellow. Still got the green, and still got the red. Now, if this is taking longer than you wish, because the computer is slow, what you can do is change settings on rendering quality. Right now it's at medium. There it goes up to all the way to presentation. To do that, what you can do is, where's my material now? Rendering. Oh, it's gonna be this arrow here, advanced rendering settings. There you can change the output size, which also affects how long your computer will take to render the object. And on the top here it says medium. You can do a draft or a low quality. Or if you feel like it's a perfect match of colors and everything, and you want to get it really nicely detailed, you can do the presentation, which takes a longer time to process, but the view is better. So I can go back to that. Just going to change the size a bit bigger, render that out. As you can see, it is taking longer than the other ones. The other ones took a couple of seconds, this one takes 5. But this is a simple project. Now, if you had a very complex object or a room, this could take 3 or 4 hours. So keep that in mind. But it's nicely presentable, and you can see, you can zoom into it. Still have the nice colorings. That concludes this project. Well, in addition to, you're going to also have to add the dimensions to it.